After it closes in 1943, Himes can't find a job in private industry and blames racism.
I think that he blamed racism on everything, that everything, he put everything in black and white. Either he got it because he was black, or he didn't get it because they were white and they were racist against him. So I think that he blamed his mishaps and his failures and his abilities not to develop his abilities as he would have liked, his writing style, his writing abilities, that he didn't make the money that he thought he should have surely deserved by being as talented as he was at that age, that America just didn't give him a shot.
The same year the WPA shuts down, Himes meets Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Art Bromfield. Bromfield likes an earlier Himes novel, Black Sheep, but is unsuccessful in using his literary contacts to get him a contract. Later in 1943, Himes travels to Los Angeles alone. Before leaving, nationally known poet Langston Hughes gives him a list of people to talk with about screenwriting. After several months, Himes finds that, like most African Americans, he can only find jobs doing manual labor for low pay. Over the next 3 years, he has 23 of these jobs, and these difficult times inspire him to write a novel. Over the next year, Himes publishes more stories in African American publications and makes plans to enter the military, but fails the physical examination and is turned down. Thus far, the people Hughes encouraged him to talk to haven't been able to help him. When he receives a fellowship award in 1944, it gives him the break he needs to finish his novel. Later that year, Himes heads back to New York when his book, If He Hollers, Let Him Go, is set for release. Not even major news coverage can get the public interested, and the book sales are lower than anticipated.
He was a writer, so he had creativity, he had talent, but he couldn't harness that talent and direct it into mainstream America. He blamed mainstream America for not allowing him to develop his talent as he wanted to. He blamed racism on the problems he was having in school, the problems he was having, or the problems his family was having. So he became a victim, and he wrote about victims.
Himes is upset with the marketing strategy and changes publishers. To work on the next project, he and his wife travel by car to Northern California. On the way, they are shocked by reports of Ku Klux Klan violence. They are disturbed even more after hotels and restaurants refuse to serve them. They depend on a loaded rifle for protection. Himes' new novel focuses on an educated African-American man in Los Angeles during the 1940s who faces heavy discrimination in looking for a job. When he finds one as a union organizer, he gets tangled in a nasty labor battle. After 3 years, Himes completes Lonely Crusade and returns to New York for its release. The story gets streams of negative publicity in the media, and sales are low. At this point, Himes is disgusted with the U.S. and thinks about leaving, like many African Americans.
The message that he was trying to get across to the black community and to the white community at large wasn't being embraced as he thought it should have been. And I think that confused him a lot and disillusioned him with the American scene, with the American agenda. And he thought that maybe his life could be better served and his talents could be better appreciated in another country.
Over the next 4 years, Himes writes 2 more novels. During this period, he is searching for a style that will gain him wide appeal and that he is comfortable with. But right now, he has to deal with low-paying jobs to support himself and his wife. She becomes tired of the struggle and loses faith in his ability to establish himself, and they divorce in 1951. When Himes signs and receives a sizable advance, he quits his job and takes off partying. By December 1952, He's back in financial trouble and has to move in with a friend in Vermont. But within weeks, he finds out that an earlier work will soon be published. An advance is sent, and this lifts his spirits.
Chester Himes was a poor money manager. He was a poor individual with dealing with women. He said he was a failure with women. He said he was a failure as a thief. And the only thing that he could latch on to was that he was a good writer, and he knew it. He believed in himself as a writer. He couldn't do anything else. He could write.
Along with his sudden breakthrough, he learns that French critics have picked his novel, Lonely Crusade, as one of the top 5 American books published in France for 1952. These new events and talks with popular African-American novelist Richard Wright, now living in Paris, convince Himes to move. The attacks and disappointments have left their wounds. In April 1953, Himes boards an ocean liner for France.
He had to get out of America, as many writers did, and sort of make a name for himself elsewhere, outside of America, where he was accepted by people in Paris, Frenchmen, Europeans basically accepted his writing.
Paris is home for many African-American writers, artists, and musicians known as expatriates. They relax and network in cafes stretched throughout the city. During this period, Himes is writing a novel based on one of his many romances while he survives off of a small writing advance. When his financial situation grows worse, he contacts his brother in Harlem and gets a loan. In July 1954, his manuscript, The End of a Primitive, is rejected. The publisher, based out of New York, prefers a series of Himes' short stories, but Himes throws the stories in the ocean. Then, within months, his fictional tale, The End of a Primitive, is bought by an American publisher. For a while, Himes is a minor celebrity among artists.
I had the creative urge, but the old used forms for Black American writers did not fit my creations. I wanted to break through the barrier that labeled me as a protest writer. I knew the life of an American Black needed another image than just a victim of racism. We were more than just victims. We did not suffer. We were extroverts. We were unique individuals. Funny, but not clowns. Solemn, but not serious. Hurt, but not suffering. We had a tremendous love of life.
In 1955, on his way to see a French publisher with a manuscript, Himes runs into his French translator of If He Hollers, Let Him Go. The translator also publishes detective stories and tells Himes that his writing style would be excellent for a detective series. Himes is not interested at first, but changes his mind after being offered a $1,000 advance. Over the next 2 years, Himes works on a detective story. In 1958, The Five-Cornered Square is named the best detective novel in France. Himes signs a contract for 8 more. By September, Himes is widely known throughout France. In the U.S., he is still being ridiculed. The New York Times writes, Himes is a small man with a little mustache and a big dog who's written unsuccessful books. This controversy disturbs him enormously. He confides to close friend and writer Carl Van Vechten,
I dread reading any reference to me in the American press. There seems to be so much calculated ill will that leaves me depressed.